Welcome. My name is Pastor Guy Roberts. I'm sorry I'm late. I've been rushed. I rushed in all the way from yeah. So this day has been a crazy day. I was outside. I'm driving my car. It gets a flat tire. I'm late to come in and film this for you to help you through this. I get the flat tire. I'm trying to fix the tire. I realize it's not going to happen in time for me to get here. So as I'm standing up, I rip a big old hole in my pants, which means then I have to run home and get my pants. And then I had to come all the way back here, and I'm red-faced. I'm sweaty. It's hot outside. I apologize for being late. But you know, I'm just trying to think. I'm trying to think of all what the good that God can bring out of this. That there must have been a reason for this bad thing to happen to me. There just had to be some reason, and there's going to be something good that comes out of it. Like a $200 tire bill, or yeah, now I have to buy a new pair of pants. That wasn't budgeted for, or. You know, sometimes in life for us, as we go through these situations and trials and find ourselves in circumstances of life, we find ourselves asking the question, why did these things happen? Why do they go like they do? And especially when they're bad. This week in our chapter, we're in Joseph, that someone who is brought from prison, I guess it's called, from slave to deputy pharaoh. And a lot of the questions here in the story, discussion questions, kind of deal with this question. Why did God do what he did? Why does God allow hurtful things to happen to people and the like? And so I'm going to go through these with you. And in chapter 3, question 1, why did Joseph's brothers want to get rid of him? Well, they're jealous, straight up. That's the answer to that one. They just, it seems like he was a pretty arrogant little brother, the favorite of his father, and they were just plain old jealous. And so they plan to kill him. Reuben steps in, saves him, and they sell him into slavery instead. And so this is where he finds himself, asking the questions, probably as he's in slavery in Potiphar's house, asking the questions, why would God allow this to happen to me? And you know, in the midst of the times in which you're down or when these bad things have happened, it's a temptation for us to say, God must bring some good of this. And while that can be true, and always is true in a grander sense, that's not always the case. See, the second question in this is, why does God allow hurtful things to happen to people? And the answer to that comes from the first chapter that we read in the story. Bad things happen in this world because of sin, and sin exists because of us. And God allows these things to happen, and he punishes sin. So every day of our life is spent struggling against sin. And sin is bad. And the consequences and the curse and creation that it causes are bad. Does God work good despite sin? Yes, he's chosen to do that. But for us to somehow wash over what sin is in our lives, somehow not call sin what it is, which is bad and hurtful and harmful, it puts us in a place in which I don't even know if we intentionally do it, but we're making excuses for God, as if the way he set this up to work isn't really the way it is, that bad things only happen so that he can do good things through them. And that minimizes the effect of sin and what it really is in this world. The truth of this is, as we go through these questions, is why does God allow hurtful things to happen to people? Well, we go back to the previous chapters, because he wanted it that way. And rather than just wipe us out, he has allowed us to exist in sin. And he's told us what it will be like. It'll be painful, hard. Relationships will be strained. That we'll have to toil for the food that is on our table and work hard for it. Childbirth will be painful, and his whole creation will be cursed. And this is where we live today. So when we go to the story of Joseph, it's important to keep this in mind. What were the positive effects of Joseph being sold into slavery? And this is what we have to deal with. God chose to use Joseph for his purposes. And his purposes were for him to go into slavery and then to be accused of rape and thrown into jail, and then to be made the deputy Pharaoh of all of Egypt. We just don't know what God's going to do. He could have just as easily had Joseph die in a prison. And for many saints throughout the course of the history of the world, this is how it's happened. I think if we reflect back, there's many big names of people who have just died in horrible ways, like all of the disciples. Jesus says, "You will die. They will hate you because of me, and many of you will be put to death." And that's bad. There, of course, God used it for his word to go forth, but for those people to be put to death is evil and the result of sin in this world. For us, maybe the greatest example of all is Jesus Christ. For us, in our sinfulness, to nail him to a cross, that's bad. There is no good in that, other than what God has chosen to do. And what we must deal with, it was his will to crush his son. It was his will to raise him from the dead. And it was his will to call us into this life of faith. And so these are the questions. Joseph, in some ways, could be considered a pawn. I mean, that's a negative term in our society today, but God used him for his purposes to save his people. And what's interesting is he promises that he would do this earlier to Moses in Genesis chapter 15. He promises that his people then will go into slavery. And when we follow in the weeks to come, what happens just a few generations later to these same people he chose to rescue through the hand of Joseph in Egypt? Well, they become slaves. And now they're in this situation for 400 years or whatever it is, a long time. And then who does he send? Well, he sends Moses. And so for us as we read this story, it's important for us as we ask through these questions to go to the last question in this. Why can God be trusted at all times? And the answer is this. Because even though you can't his will and never understand why he's doing what it is that he's doing, unless he tells you, you can trust that he is for you because his son, Jesus Christ, and what he has done through him. And so I ask you, enjoy your reading this week. It's a great story. It's an amazing, just an account of what it means to be faithful in the midst of trials. And if you have any questions, as always, please go ahead and contact me or any of the other pastors at the church office, and we would love to talk with you more about God's story for your life. Have a blessed day.